Okay, welcome back, everybody. This is the Blackhawk County Public Health Community Forum. Today we have the topic of jury duty, and we have Arnell Ernst with Iowa Courts, I believe, yes, on the line with us. So I will hand it over to Arnell, and we will get started.
Thank you, Tracy. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm on speaker on the cell phone, so.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. So I'm going to give you a presentation. This is going to be an overview of jury service, of which you may get summoned for. And so I'm going to do kind of a brief overview of what to expect from beginning to end. And I'm going to be reading a lot of this because I want to make sure that I get each of this information accurate and all-inclusive of what you should know and to expect. And then if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. The majority of what I may speak of is generalized, but I'm going to hit a little bit more on Blackhawk County just because that's the area that we're in. There is kind of a difference on how we do things with urban and rural counties, so I'll try to make sure that I cover that for both. So the idea of jury service is of our peers have the fundamentals to the American justice system, and it's been that way since the beginning of the justice system. A group of 6 to 12 men and women from all sections of the community sit down together, and they hear a case brought before the court. These individuals listen to the facts of the case, apply the law provided by the judge, and consult amongst themselves to come to a verdict. As several of you may know, that verdict may be guilty, that verdict may be not guilty. From time to time, we see mistrials or what we would call a hung jury, where they cannot come to a conclusion. And sometimes the change to the charges, the jury is presented with a particular charge, and they have the ability to potentially change, lessen or so what that charge is that they're found guilty of or not guilty of. So the responsibilities of the judge and jury, they're very important. In order for our court system to work properly, judges and jurors must consider the case before them in a way that is thoughtful, involves sound judgment, is impartial and fair, and shows integrity. That is extremely important when you're a juror. In each trial, the judge determines the rules of law that govern the case. For example, the judge decides what evidence may be admitted or considered. They will consider an attorney's objection to something that was said during the trial. At times, the judge may excuse the jury from the courtroom so that they can speak to the attorneys privately. That is one thing that we have a lot of feedback on when it comes to jury service is there could be downtime. And downtime means that you're sitting and you're waiting to find out what's going on with that court. That court is doing some very important pieces, and so jurors should feel like their time is being wasted or that information is being withheld from them. And there's been some information that's trying to be worked through to ensure that everything is covered for that trial fairly. These conferences allow the trial to continue fairly and efficiently. At the close of the trial, the judge will give the juror instructions as to the laws that govern the case. At that time, the responsibility switches to the jurors after listening carefully and considering all of the testimony and evidence. And at the time, jurors will move to a jury room to discuss the case in privacy. So they will be the only people in that room. It's just the jurors. Jurors decide which facts in the case are most credible and then apply the laws instructed by the judge in order to reach a verdict. So there's different kinds of cases that take place in the court. And we have jury service for both of them. And one is a civil case and one is a criminal case. So civil cases involve disputes between people or organizations. It may involve property, personal rights, landlord-tenant disputes, auto or personal injury accidents, product warranties, contract disputes, and harassment or employment disputes. So there's all kinds of different things that would go through a civil jury trial. The party that sues is called the plaintiff, while the party being sued is known as the defendant or a respondent. The case begins when the plaintiff files a written complaint in the court office, and as the clerk of court, that's where things originate. A lot of the complaints originate with the clerk of court's office and ends with the clerk of court's office as it goes through the entire court system. The other party then just can generally dispute the claim by filing an answer. So very seldom do we have a jury trial for somebody that agrees that they're in the wrong and they're just going to fess up to whatever is going on in a civil case. They've normally disputed. In a civil case, juries decide which party will prevail and whether damages, which normally are money, should be awarded. So then in criminal cases, they're filed on behalf of citizens of the state of Iowa against an individual or corporation accused of committing a crime. In most cases, a prosecutor files a complaint, so an attorney, which explains the charges against the defendant. And if the charge is brought by a grand jury, it's known as an indictment. So you don't normally hear that in your local court, but in your bigger cases, you'll hear the grand jury. The person charged with an offense may admit the charge is true by entering a plea of guilty, or may deny the charge by pleading not guilty. So if they enter guilty, there will not be a jury trial. If they enter not guilty, that's when there's the potential of a jury trial to decide the outcome of that case. So what a lot of people want to know is, well, how did I get selected for jury service? So each year, the Iowa Judicial Branch obtains names from a list of licensed drivers, from state identification card holders, and from registered voters residing in the county. And then that information is compiled into what we call a master jury list. The names of deceased persons provided by the Iowa Department of Health are removed from the source list. We want to avoid sending out those jury summonses if at all possible. From this list, the individuals are randomly selected by the computer. No one person has any involvement in selecting that. It is all done randomly. If you get notification, you're going to want to complete what's called a jury questionnaire, and you want to complete that accurately, which will help the court determine if you are qualified to serve as a juror. It is important that the records of your name and address are accurate and up to date. Include any changes in your personal information when completing the questionnaire. Incorrect information may cause delays. So if you receive a jury notice for a county that you no longer live in, you're going to want to make sure you contact that county to let them know that you no longer reside there and have them remove you from that list. Update your address. Iowa citizens who receive a summons for jury service should complete a jury questionnaire and return it to the court within 10 days of receiving that summons. In Blackhawk County, we normally summons jurors up to 6 weeks before that jury trial is ready to start. So we need to have time to be able to compile that list ahead of time. You can complete the questionnaire online, or you can call and request a paper questionnaire. About 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, we updated our system to be electronic. So most of the information we capture now is electronic, but there are still those paper questionnaires available. The website allows you to respond to your summons for jury service online, and it also allows you to make changes. You can also request a postponement. It's common this time of the year where somebody has a vacation scheduled, and so they don't want to miss or cancel vacation and lose out on that cost. So they can ask for a postponement to be able to serve at a later date. You can also update your contact information online. So some of the myths are that there are some certain automatic excusals, and that is not true. There is no such thing as an automatic excusal from jury duty. If you are summoned, you must serve on jury duty unless you are disqualified or excused by the court. And this is for the following reasons that would be allowed. You are not a citizen of the United States. You are under 18 years of age. You are not a resident of the county that you're summoned to serve. You are not able to communicate English, either read, write, or understand. You have a mental or physical disability that would affect your ability to serve, or you have served on jury duty within the past 2 years. If you served a year ago and you get another summons, please contact us. So these questionnaires are going to come, and they're going to have quite a few questions. And these are the questions that you're going to see on your questionnaire. The first one's going to be, are you a resident of the state of Iowa? Are you a United States citizen? Do you understand the English language when written, spoken, or manually signed? Are you able to receive and evaluate information to accomplish satisfactory jury service? Have you ever been convicted of a crime other than a traffic offense? Have you or a close friend or relative been a party or witness in a court case other than a divorce? Do you have a close friend or relative employed in law enforcement? Have you or any close friend or relative been a victim of a serious crime? Have you ever served as a juror before? The level of your education, what your occupation is, who your employer is, what your marital status is, how many children you may have and what their ages are, your spouse's name, your spouse's occupation, and your spouse's employer. These questions are all captured to ensure our jury panels are represented by the community. Both race and gender is just as important. Once you're selected for jury service and the day arrives and you appear, what's going to happen is jury selection first. In Blackhawk County, you'll check in with the clerk of court's office. If there's more than one trial going, there can be sometimes 4 to 6 trials each week going. They will send you to the courtroom that you're randomly selected to go to. Then they're going to start something called voir dire. And voir dire is during jury selection to get everything kind of kicked off. The potential jurors are randomly selected from the driver's license, the state ID, and the voter records like we talked about. The length of jury service is going to depend on the county in which you live. In Blackhawk County, it's a one-time service. If you are selected to appear next Tuesday for jury service, it's a one-and-done kind of thing for 2 years. In some of the rural counties, it could be a month-long service where you're selected to be a juror for the month of August. And any jury trials that take place is potential for you to have to report. It used to be more common in our rural areas to have 3 months of jury service, where you had the potential to go to any jury trial that took place as a juror for 3 months. And we have been able to change that a little bit down to 1 month. So most counties only have 1 week where they have a priority week for jury trials. Some of them have 2, but that still can be an interruption, I know, to some people. So when a jury case is called, the clerk of court randomly chooses potential jurors and sends them to a courtroom for interviews known as voir dire. In the courtroom, you will learn more about the case, and you will be questioned by the judge and the attorneys so that they may determine whether you qualify for service. Depending on the type of case or the procedures used in the county, you may be questioned individually or in a group. And that may depend on the case also, what kind of case that's going on. If you feel you should not serve as a juror or you know the party or witness, then you want to make sure that you let the judge or the attorney know as soon as possible. You won't know what kind of court case that you're participating in as a juror until the day you arrive. So that's not something you can let us know before you arrive, but you're going to want to know it as soon as you find that information out. During this jury selection, there may be several people in that courtroom: the judge, the attorneys for both sides, a jury attendant, the respondent or the defendant, both parties, most likely. And then you can have public sitting in. This is an open jury selection, is a public event. And oftentimes you'll have families there that are part of it, especially with criminal cases. Once that's done, the jury will take an oath, and the attorneys on each side of the case may make opening statements. Opening statements should not be considered as evidence. They're to introduce the attorney's theory to the case, kind of the stage 1. The next step in the trial is the presentation of evidence. Usually the plaintiff's attorney in the civil case or the prosecutor in a criminal case will begin. Once their presentation is complete, then the prosecutor can rest and the defense may present their case. When they're presenting evidence, there may be physical evidence or exhibits that you're going to see. There may be photographs, there may be objects that were used, or sometimes documents are entered as evidence. So it can also be a spoken statement from someone under oath, so that may be a witness that's called to testify. Or there may be something called a deposition done before the court trial actually starts, and that is submitted as evidence as well, where somebody is interviewed prior to the court case and then submitted as evidence. The judge ultimately decides what is permitted to be presented into that case. So at that time, there's several things that shouldn't be considered. The judge is very thorough as to when you can consider something evidence or when you should disregard it. The same goes for any type of statements that are made during that jury trial. The judge can say, you know, you can disregard that, that cannot be submitted as evidence. Sometimes you'll have witnesses that get examined. The witness may come in for either party, both the plaintiff or the defendant or respondent, and that witness is asked to recount by swearing in for the truth exactly what their side of the situation is. And then the attorneys can question each other. So that's always an interesting portion of the trial, is listening to those witnesses being examined. Attorneys can make objections of things that are presented. They can ask for private conferences. The private conferences oftentimes are another delay in the trial, but they're very important, and we don't want the jurors to feel as if there's something going on that isn't privileged to them. It's just something that they're trying to iron out. There are times where the defendant may decide to take a plea agreement after the jury trial gets started. So there's times that they have to determine that as well. If the trial goes all the way through, at the very end, the attorneys for both parties will present closing arguments. And closing arguments are exactly that. They've presented the evidence, and now they want to finalize their theory of what's taken place, what they've told you, shown you, presented to you, and what they feel is an important end or outcome for this particular trial. Then the judges are going to give you instructions. They're going to let you know that the trial is concluded and that they are going to give you instructions on what your next step as a juror is going to be. And then jurors will go into what's called deliberations. Deliberations are moved to a very private jury room. Only jurors are in the deliberations. And that is at the time where they select a foreperson. And the foreperson will represent any questions or any verdicts that the jury does come up with. The jury's first task is to have that foreman make sure that everything goes smooth and that everybody's questions are answered. You need to base your decision on the case facts of the evidence, whether you agree with that law or not. And then at the time of the verdict, in a criminal case, all jurors must agree on the verdict. So all 12 jurors must come to the same agreement. In a civil case, Iowa law does allow the jurors, if they don't agree on a verdict, then they give a timeline of being able to come to a consensus. So after the verdict is decided, they'll let the judge know. The judge will pull all the case parties, which is also, again, a public presentation. All the case parties, and including the defendant, and at that time, they will present what the jury is, or what the verdict is. At the end, when everybody is dismissed, the jury can stick around most often and visit with the attorneys and the judge to answer any questions or get any type of clarification that they may feel that they needed that they did not get during that trial. And then the jury does conclude. In Blackhawk County, oftentimes we do ask for a jury survey. We are very interested in knowing what we can do better, things that worked in the jury service that you enjoyed and things that you did not. And so to conclude this, the biggest thing that I want to make sure everybody is aware of, in addition to what is expected during service, is there are a lot of jury service scams going on right now. They have been targeting a lot of people, mostly senior citizens, it seems. And what they're doing is they're being pressured to provide confidential data or money, and they're wanting that in lieu of missing jury service. And so we want to make sure everybody knows that the court will never ask law enforcement officers to collect a fine from you. If you get any type of contact for that, please reach out to either your sheriff's office or the clerk of court office. So all of this information that I presented can be seen at iowacourt.gov, and it will include parking details for your county. It will include what to wear to jury service, and a lot of this information, including a little bit more detail of what jury service will include. You can call and ask the clerk of court additional questions, and if it's possible, they will tell you everything that they can, with the exception of any legal advice. They cannot give you legal advice, and they also can't tell you what type of case to expect when you arrive. So that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
Awesome. That's a lot of information.
It is a lot of information, and it's information that most people don't know. So
yeah.
it's good information.
Yeah, for sure. And like, it's one of those things like jury duty, I feel it sounds intense, and I'm like, well, maybe it's not as intense, but is it as intense as it sounds, is my question.
I don't know if I don't know if intense is the right word. It can be very exciting. You will see things that aren't always the way they're depicted on a TV show. But you do hear a lot of things that go on in your community, or different ways that people may handle or interpret things. And so it can be very exciting. One of the questions that we do ask on that jury survey is, did you enjoy your jury service? So was it better than what you expected? And most of the time we get that it is better than they expected. People have a preconceived thought of what jury service is going to be and the inconvenience that it gives them in their life. But after they actually do it, they do enjoy it.
Well, that's interesting. I guess I didn't think about it that way. Cool.
Yeah.
So you touched on this a bit, but just to reiterate, because of the individuals who will likely be watching this, so for a person to serve jury duty, they have to be a U.S. citizen, and if they don't speak English, like they fill out that questionnaire that says that they don't speak English. Is that kind of is that how that works? Like in the event if they don't speak English, I guess.
Yes, that's going to be the best way they do it, or make some type of contact with our office so that we can enter that into our system.
So the big thing is to make sure you respond to some degree, because correct me if I'm wrong, but if you don't respond to like a summons, then you could get in trouble for that. Is that accurate?
That's accurate, yes. This is a requirement. Jury service is a requirement. Once you're summoned, you are expected to participate. Okay. You must go through the necessary steps to either be excused or deferred. Okay. So it's very important to follow through.
Okay, because I think that's like the biggest thing from what I've heard in the community is like some people, they're just confused, they don't know what to do, and then they're like, well, I don't speak English, I can't do this. But then maybe they just like don't do anything about it, and that's problematic, because then there has to be like a specific reason documented as to why. So
yes, agreed. And jury service doesn't go away, so just ignoring it is just going to continue to prompt us to do the next step.
Sure. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Any other thoughts or questions? Julie or Adriana, did you have anything to add today?
No, everything was explained well.
Okay. Awesome. Julie, anything on your end?
Not really. I think it was clear. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Yep. Okay, and Crystal, did you have anything to add?
Not specifically, but I did wonder, just because, some of the cases that people may be going to are, like you said, criminal charges and stuff. Is there like any protection for jury members? Like if they feel uncomfortable, like leaving the courthouse, or like after the courthouse and everything, or after the court case is done?
Yep, good question. So yes, we have security in the courtroom. We have security at the entrance, and we have security rovers that go throughout the courthouse to make sure that there is security. In addition to that, we do have security outside in the parking areas. And if somebody is fearful or concerned, we would certainly have them walk them to their car. Public jury summonses and jury names are public. However, we do in Black Hawk County do what we can to protect those names. And so a lot of times what we do is we redact the name of the juror and use a number system for them.
Okay, good. I was wondering about how that worked. So thank you.
Sure.
And Arnell, I know you had mentioned this already, like we can go to the website to explore like more specific details, but like, I guess if you could answer it just because we have you here, in regards to Black Hawk County specifically, like how is a person to dress for jury duty and that kind of stuff? Like what should their attire be?
Their attire should be presentable, clean clothes. You don't want anything, you know, torn or tattered as possible. You want to look presentable, but that will not be determined whether you get selected for jury. You know, we have people come from a construction site that were working and came in for jury service. So, you know, they ask you to dress appropriately, but it's not really a hindrance of whether you serve on a jury or not.
Okay, good to know. And you also mentioned this, and I think this is, I actually didn't know this, like if someone is summoned for jury duty and they had like a vacation planned or they were planning on being gone for a specific amount of time and it happens to fall at that time, it is possible to be excused from jury duty for that, or is it like on a case-by-case basis?
You can ask for a deferral through the online system by yourself. So if you get a jury summons and you get on there, it does give you an option to ask for a deferral for down the road. Excusals are very seldom. Excusable to us is completely taking you off of the jury, but deferrals are more common, and you can ask for those on your own and get that automatically through that online system. So yes, you bet. People do have lives. You know, the system does understand that not every time we call you for jury service will it work. And so we do want to accommodate that as well.
Okay, cool. All right, well, I'm going to stop recording now.